cartoons from present and the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, the podcast that really makes you think. I'm your host, Monaco's mopiest millionaire, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
It's Henry Gilbert, and my favorite background is Starlight over Yosemite.
And who else is here?
Hey guys, I'm Sam, and I am the Misery Chick.
She's here in person, folks, and today's episode is the Daria episode, The Misery Chick. Yes, those are the great chords of Splendora, who you'll never hear again.
La 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 la.
That's pretty good. I guess that's the only song they ever created. But yes, we are now doing Daria, and is this the first? No, we've done Beavis and Butthead, so there's a lot to get into here. But before we start, I usually start by asking people what their experience is with the show. And Sam, you are our special guest today, and you were actually the person I asked to be on this show.
Yeah.
What is your Daria knowledge? What is your Daria lifestyle? I need to know all about it.
So I guess I first encountered Daria when I was so when Daria first came out, I was still a child. I was only 7 or 8 years old, and I remember seeing it on MTV because I had my neighbors and friends were older than me, and I always was trying to like keep up with their preteen ways, and so I thought watching MTV was really cool. I actually saw Daria first then, and I liked it. I didn't get into the full depth of it, but by the time the show ended, I was entering my preteen years and fully addicted at that point. I started watching reruns when they put it on again throughout high school, and loved it.
I want to know, really, so you watched it as a 7-year-old. I'm guessing you connected more with Daria or other characters as a preteen or a teen.
Yeah, when I first saw it, I loved Quinn.
Quinn is a great character.
Yeah, I really liked Quinn and the Fashion Club. I thought they were really funny.
They are a lot of fun. I do like them that they just start the fashion in the first episode. They're just like, well, let's start the Fashion Club. Just right at it.
And then in my teenage years, I really identified with Daria. I was definitely a pretty miserable teenager, and funny enough, I loved Shakespeare, and existentialism really struck me. So I thought that Daria's humor was really funny.
I guess we are all in a room full of Darias. No one is a Jane in this room, as far as I know. I am a Daria type.
I was also a Daria as well, yeah. And I was watching it. I mean, I was going to follow whatever was a Beavis and Butthead spinoff. Like, that was how it was sold to me. But I always, like Daria as a background character in Beavis and Butthead, I always liked her. And she was just smarter than the show. And then when she gets her own show, it comes right when I am 14, almost 15. Like, I am the exact age range they are going for it, just as I'm entering high school and being depressed. And so it kind of, and by the time the show ended, I was out of high school, and I graduated around the same time Daria did. So it was an easy watch for me, or easy thing to find parallels in my life too.
Yeah, if you've been listening to this podcast, you know Henry and I have a lot of the same experiences because we are the exact same age and also nerds. And yes, when this came out, Daria was entering her sophomore year of school, and so was I. So she was mopey, I was mopey, she was bookish, I was bookish, and she was owning the normies in a way I wish I could.
Same.
I didn't have all the cool speeches she did that were written by adults.
Yeah, it was wish fulfillment or nerd empowerment in a way. Watching this, especially that was really hitting me when I was rewatching it for this, and just going like, oh, these speeches Daria had. This is what I loved about the show, because I would watch it and think to myself, I wish I was making these speeches all the time at the jerks in my school, and that it would like matter when I did make a good point.
I would mainly mutter and look at my shoes in these Daria situations.
Maybe you're the stupid guy,
and then be really mad at yourself on the bus when you come up with the good thing to say that you never said in the first place. I want to get into the history of the show. Just some basic info about Daria. It ran for 5 seasons from March of 1997 to January of 2002. There were 65 episodes and 2 TV movies, and the second TV movie was the finale where they graduate from high school. So there is a definitive Daria finale in movie form. So the show has a pretty interesting history. It was created by 2 writers, Glenn Eichler and Susie Lewis Lynn. And their history is pretty interesting. So Glenn comes from not the Harvard Lampoon, but the National Lampoon magazine. And he and Susie were both writers for MTV's promo department, where they would put together commercials and, promotional things and stuff like that. And because they had no animation wing and because they were just, dabbling in animation, Beavis and Butthead was created as part of the promotions department. So people in the promotions department were ending up on the show as writers, as voice actors. Tracy Grandstaff, the voice of Daria, was a writer for MTV commercials. That's how she ended up as Daria. And Glenn created Daria for Beavis and Butthead because they needed a female character that was not there for Beavis and Butthead to ogle, and also someone that was tolerant of Beavis and Butthead but still liked to fuck with them. Like Beavis and Butthead's connection to people in the world around them is usually one that's very negative and one where everyone reacts poorly to them or yells at them or
tries to kill them.
Tries to kill them, yes. But Daria is just very quietly patronizing in a way that they don't recognize. Sam, do you have any memories of Daria on Beavis and Butthead? Did you ever watch Beavis and Butthead?
I hated Beavis and Butthead. I thought I really loathed it.
I was the perfect age for Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, I just remember seeing Beavis and Butthead, and my cousins loved it, and I was like, this show is so stupid. Why does anybody like this?
You might have liked to see Daria on the show, though, because she has these long speeches. She is there, again, to fuck with Beavis and Butthead and to be very patronizing, and they don't realize that at all. Sorry.
She is the smart to their stupid.
Yes, for sure.
And that I love.
No, I was the right age for Beavis and Butthead, and I was a 10 to 13-year-old boy and then aged right into Daria. Like it was... I don't know if that was their sinister plan in programming, but it was definitely recognizing that like these young people had grown into it. Not to mention too that like Beavis and Butthead is so scatological and so aimed at boys that I think they needed a show for women as well.
Well, it was a part of MTV's initiative to capture a female audience. They wanted to expand that demographic, and I'm pretty sure that Daria was a big play for them.
Yeah, the initiative was, I believe MTV said we need a show for girls, which I think is like really putting Daria in a corner as a show. I feel like it is a very accessible show no matter what you identify as, but it was much less juvenile and, frat boyish than Beavis and Butthead or all the other MTV programming. So in a way, it is sort of a show for girls. But based on this plea for this girl show, Glenn and Susie put together a pilot. You can watch it online. It's a very crude animatic with Daria basically getting revenge on Kevin, the football player. In this pilot, she is very much more aggressive and proactive than she is in the series, but it does set up the dynamic that would be very much a part of the first season's plot lines in which Daria will own the normies. And we can talk about how that changes over the years, but that's very much what this first season is devoted to. Yeah,
you're talking about Sealed with a Kick, right?
Yes, that's right.
The pencil test?
Yeah, and that was on, I believe that was also on one of the VHS tapes, and it might be on the DVDs they sell.
I remember watching it on the VHS tape. Yeah, wow. Man, it was real rough. It's just a black and white animatic, though. I do think when you look at Daria's animation is such a huge step up from the Beavis and Butthead animation, and that it is a 30-minute program instead of just a bunch of shorts that can be remixed however they want. It was more ambitious than Beavis and Butthead and the other shows were.
But the fun part about Sealed with a Kick is her. I actually really like the story that they put in Sealed with a Kick about this like football player, and he's. Daria just asks him for a pencil, and he's like, "Oh, she's in love with me," and it's just like this insult to his ego.
Yes,
which I find so funny. It really, even though she is different in the first season, then obviously she became something different than she was shown in Sealed with a Kick, but. That humor is the same.
She's much more proactive and almost revenge-based in that pilot. But it is a fun pilot. I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the first season, and this episode that we're doing today is very much a turning point in the general arc of Daria. So before this episode, the season finale, the formula was Daria enters a new group of normies, and she is pushed to the point where she has to own them through a cool speech, through some sort of creative revenge, and so on. Towards the end of the first season, that was getting kind of stale, and this episode really looks at, like, who is Daria, why does she act like this, and how the world around her thinks about her. And very much after this episode and the seasons to follow, there's more of a character study of Daria and how in the beginning you can be a nerd and watch Daria and be like, yeah, she's cool, I want to be just like her. But as the show starts to go on, you think to yourself, well, Daria kind of sucks and she's not very likable, and it's not always great to be right if nobody likes you. And I think the show does a really great job of explaining it, mainly through the relationship between Daria and Jane. Like, Jane is the more proactive character. Jane is always trying to push Daria to be more human and more flawed, but Daria is very stoic. She has very black and white morality. And again, the episodes to follow will really kind of deconstruct Daria, and by the end, she'll be a much different character. I don't know if you guys followed Daria to the end of the show. I'm just curious as to what you think about that.
I haven't seen Daria through the end, straight, front to back. Like, I haven't done it straight through.
I definitely saw her grow and change in the show, and I think I like the dynamic. The dynamic between Jane and Daria is great because it's the writer and the artist, and so Jane definitely is more emotionally intelligent than Daria is, and I think it was something I really like in this episode that they point out to her, like, well, you are smarter than everybody, but that doesn't mean you have like more feelings than them or you understand feelings more. And Jane understands feelings a lot more than her. And so and you get to see her grow, especially when she like has her first boyfriend. I think she especially sees it like, oh, I thought I understood what romance was, and she definitely looked down on other people like, oh, you almost like in an alien way of like you biological people in your love. But when she is romantically interested in someone, she sees that it's messy and you hurt people without thinking about it. And I think she grows a lot thanks to that storyline as well.
Well, I don't think that Daria. I don't think that Daria is necessarily less emotional. She is definitely more of a realist in some ways, whereas Jane is a more, you could say, emotional or idealistic art person. She's an artist, so her character contrasts Daria, but they're just different. And their juxtaposition to each other in that way is intentional to paint a broader image.
Yeah, I really love their relationship. It's one of the best parts of the show, and it's fun to just get them together talking. In any other show, I feel like the dialogue would be too clever, but they are both very clever characters in their own different ways, and they're outcasts in their own different ways. And I just love scenes with very talky scenes between them because they're both outcasts, but they both have a very different perspective, even though they normally agree with each other.
There's so many good quotes between the two of them, and their 1-2s are really good throughout the show.
Yeah. It reminded me a lot of my relationships, my friendships in high school too, of just having like me and a couple other outcasts like snarkily commenting on people who are more popular than us, or just the world of high school and looking down on it, but also from a certain, in my case, of being mad or jealous on a certain level. But that doesn't really come through with Daria and Jane, though. They just like being snarky.
Yeah, but there's a real sense of loyalty between them, I think, that does get challenged throughout the series.
There's an amazing quote between the two of them that I actually just wrote it down because I was watching Daria last night and it just made me chuckle. Jane says, "Does this mean that these are the best years of our lives?" And Daria's like, "Oh God, I hope not."
Even something as simple as that is a great like 1-2. I do love their interplay so much.
They have so many more of those. They're hilarious.
Yeah, I was watching the one where Daria kisses Tom for the first time. The guy who was the boyfriend of Jane and then breaks up with Jane and then starts dating Daria, and that causes drama. But that Daria says like she doesn't want to hurt Jane, and she says like that she has this long speech about like she's an outcast, she has to live all this time as an outcast, and then she finally finds somebody else who's just as much of an outcast as you, and now you're gonna mess it all up with some dumb romantic attraction to somebody.
Yeah, it's probably one of the scenes in this series that made me cry. This series can get pretty emotional if you connect with these characters as much as someone like me does. Mm-hmm. And I do want to do a shout out to the voice actors on the show. I was reading an interview with the creator, and he sort of regretted that they couldn't get professional voice actors because they didn't have a lot of money, even though this is one of MTV's highest rated shows at the time. Of course, Tracy Grandstaff is an amazing Daria. She's not a professional actor, and you can tell, but there's a sort of realism to her performance. But I do want to say Wendy Hoops, she plays Jane Lane. She also plays Quinn, and she also plays Daria's mom, Helen. Those are all three way different performances and three way different voices. And that is just amazing to think that one person does all of those voices, all three of those very different characters. So Wendy Hoops, man, MVP of the show for sure.
Yeah, there were actually several voice actors that voiced different characters on the show.
Yeah, I believe one of the male voice actors voices Kevin, Mr. DiMartino, the sort of Christopher Walken teacher, and Mr. O'Neill, the very touchy-feely
That's so funny
hippie teacher.
The two male teachers are the same actor. I didn't realize that Jane and Quinn share the same voice until sometimes Jane has to make fun of she has to imitate a popular girl when mocking them, and then she gets so close to the Quinn voice. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the Quinn. But the Quinn is I also do like that Quinn, Daria's sister, is kind of you can make assumptions about her, but she has a deeper life than you think.
Oh, completely. And Quinn's character grows tremendously throughout the seasons. You can hate Quinn for being a popular girl, but she's really lovable. Even in the first episode, she's a total man-eater. I love it,
She has a lot of agency for a character that you wouldn't expect to have that agency, or at least be aware of the agency she has in the world.
Yeah. I think in the first episode, the second she realizes those three guys are into her, that she's like, oh, well, then I'll just keep using you guys.
I guess the running joke for that is she doesn't remember any of their names or confuses all of their names. Joey, Jeffy, and Jamie, I think they are.
Yeah. Funny, Jamie... the running joke among him is that nobody in the show ever gets his name right.
That is great. And I will say that, so Henry and I were talking about this before the recording, and there are some topics that Daria does not address that feel kind of absent in a modern context. I also feel that there's a real feminism of this age, like a real attack on like traditional femininity that I feel that it comes off as kind of ugly these days. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but I feel that anything viewed as traditionally feminine on Daria is something to be made fun of, where I feel like we are more open-minded. If you want to wear makeup or wear dresses or look pretty, I feel like, more power to you. But on Daria, it's a little more of the 90s kind of feminism.
Well, it is.
Put on overalls, don't wear makeup, plant an herb garden, that kind of thing.
Well, it is. It's also because it's, we're seeing that through the lens of Daria and Jane, who are very late 90s feminism. And, that's not even, I would go so far to say is that's still how it is. I have a lot of, friends who feel that femininity actually cheapens their like self-worth in some way. It's still a very common thing among women.
This is my male perspective, by the way. But
even on like a broader, like this is not about cartoons, but it's even, you can take this out of context of what we're talking about and put it into like plastic surgery, how women view other women who get plastic surgery and focus on their, physical appearance, right?
Yeah. Well, I will say that the traditionally masculine characters are also really made fun of too on this show. And so I think it is like the extremes of both sides are what is easy to take down. But again, as we talked about before, a lot of the seemingly one-dimensional characters like Kevin and Brittany and Quinn are really developed over the course of these 65 episodes to be more than just easy targets.
Yeah, and well, that's something that the Misery Chick really accomplished, because especially in the first season, all of these supporting characters in Lonsdale and in the high school are very stereotypical and pretty flat, and the Misery Chick gave us a chance to empathize with them and understand their potential.
Yeah, and Kevin, especially Kevin and Brittany, they are such broad stereotypes. In the first episodes, they are just like, in that they are never even out. I knew football players and cheerleaders in high school. They didn't wear their uniform all the time, especially not their full gear
all
like
the pads,
Kevin does.
I do like it's a great visual joke that Kevin is always in full football uniform, no helmet. But again, you learn more about like Kevin. I feel like is a tragic character. Eventually, you learn that he is just going to be a sad townie, and he's being pushed by his pushy dad who never made it. It's like there's a lot more life to these characters than
in the finale. He's held back, like he doesn't
That's
graduate.
Right. I totally forgot about that. Yeah, and I think even Brittany realizes like she's too good for
She
Kevin
breaks
in the
up.
end.
Yeah, he makes her promise to not break up with him when she goes to college and he doesn't, and she's like, "Oh yeah," and she has her fingers crossed. So, which is the smart move. Leave your high school boyfriend in the past. Folks.
Oh, for sure, guys. Listen to us.
You're
If you're in
better
high
than
school, move on. I do want to talk about a few of the topics that they don't cover, and in some cases, I feel like the show would be too dark if they did cover these. And the number one thing I have written down here is bullying. I feel like Daria would be so bullied in Lawndale High if this show were more realistic. And I'm not saying it should be, and the show would be very depressing if she was getting gay bashed all the time, which I really think she would be. But that's one thing I don't feel like they really touch upon on the show, and that's one of the slightly unrealistic things about it. What do you guys feel about that aspect? Because as someone who was bullied in school and someone who was very Daria-esque, I was just like, no one's bullying her. Everyone likes her and knows her name. What's the deal?
They bully her through neglect. They just think she's not a person. Like Kevin doesn't think he's bullying her, but he does say like, how can I think less of you? Like that's his.
Yeah.
But
they're patronizing in a way they don't understand, but they're not directly malicious.
They aren't directly malicious, which I don't know what it's like to be a geeky girl who gets bullied, but I would, as a geeky guy who got bullied in school, like it's not, you definitely get passive aggressiveness or just like meanness in that way, but you also get overt aggression. And but I wonder too if it's just, there was around the same time as the show there was Freaks and Geeks, and that show really did show like real bullying, at least in a few episodes, and it just makes you so uncomfortable and unhappy that I think they're like, we don't want to give the audience too much bad feelings like this.
Yeah, I think it was just meant to, if they were to show real bullying in the show, how would they be able to pull off the same type of humor?
Mm-hmm. It's true, yeah. It would be a little too ugly and a little too realistic for this sort of escapist character that they created. Henry, you're pointing out there are no real queer characters in the show except for one in the last movie, which is not used very well. Do you want to talk more about that?
Well, yeah. So, I mean, it's time for Henry's gay watch here. No,
the gay corner.
But yeah, though it did remind me that like in the 90s too, at that time, MTV was way ahead of other television channels with gay programming or putting gay characters and stuff, not just with like The Real World would always have at least one gay person in it, but beyond that they had shows like Undressed, which had tons of gay relationships in it. They had gay characters on so many like of their fictional shows. And then meanwhile on Daria, which has all of these, tropes and comments on tropes of a high school show, they still didn't have like a gay character, a gay episode, except for in the movie where Jane goes to an art camp during the summer, and there is a woman there who she befriends, who's played by the singer and drawn to look like the singer Biff Naked of the time, who she in reality is a bisexual woman. And that character hits on Jane and has Jane questioning her sexuality. And then it turns out that it was just like a mean girl flirting with her who then like was just messing with her and then gets with another guy, which really falls into the evil especially bisexual woman trope that is just really ugly, and when that's the only gay character within the show, like that's not good.
Yeah, they kind of failed there.
I hate to say this, but that that trope has been that happens.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I was going to say
it's
real.
I hate I hate the trope, but it exists.
I didn't want to be the one.
Complicated reasons.
I didn't want to be the one to say it, and I was going to say I'm sure it happens, but if that's your only representation of a queer character on the show, it's not the best.
It's not the
best representation.
It's definitely not. But I think that was. I think having that subject matter in Daria would have been difficult at the time specifically. The show is supposed to be very middle America, and there are not a lot of openly gay kids in middle America.
No,
that's true, especially in the 90s.
In 1999, in my high school, there was... I mean, I was in the closet. I certainly wasn't going to come out in high school. I have it bad enough as it is, I felt. And same with there... And I felt... this is something... Like, this whole episode is just going to make me feel a ton of raw emotions from high school, but... one of those things was that like I was a more straight acting kid, but there were some rather effeminate kids who, at least two of them, I know they later came out, but I just felt so bad for them because they were rather effeminate guys, and people immediately, like, they were gay bashing them all the time because of just how they acted. And now I feel terrible thinking like, well, I just stood back like, well, better you than me. Like or even getting like, this is how like a lot of gay men end up having like a distaste for effeminate guys because they're like, oh, how you're the type of person that got picked on in high school, not like me. Like it's just so yeah. But anyway,
you have like the social one-up.
Totally. And so that's yeah, you're right. It was realistic in that regard. Like in middle America, there were no openly gay students.
Like not often.
Very few. And, no straight gay alliances on campus back then.
Yeah, and it just would. I can't imagine at the time what it would have been like writing that line, especially given that the creators of the show were both like cis, straight.
Right,
It's like they would totally be out of their depth writing that plot line, I think.
I think that's why they waited for the last Daria thing to include any sort of queer character. They're like, I guess this is the last time to do this, so...
Even, I believe it was Susie Lewis-Lynn came out later to talk about how she felt that Mac was the most underdeveloped character in Daria, and he was the only black male character on the show.
And I would agree with her.
Yeah, and I would agree too. And so... that just speaks to the same issue there.
Yeah, and I think again, I don't want to judge a thing from almost 20 years ago, over 20 years ago, too much by our standards. And I think if they were to do it now, they would be more diverse, and they were more diverse for its time compared to contemporary shows. Like characters like Jody and Mac weren't in most other shows either.
Just having an MTV show starring two women was diverse for the time.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. It's funny that you say that because when the reboot was rumored in like 2011, I had heard rumors that they were going to come out with Daria and Jody as the new duo.
I believe that's the official word now. I looked up a news story from June, just looking up Daria reboot news because news happened and I didn't really look into it. But the official news from real sites is that it is indeed Daria and Jody as the title for this reboot. TBD.
Yeah,
I guess
TBD. Is it actually going to happen?
It's at least in production, but also they didn't even. I remember that press release. It doesn't say definitively if it's animated or not, and maybe they just feel you can assume it's going to be animated, but it also just could be live action.
I really hope so, and I don't know. I mean, and Jodie is a good character, but she's not one of my favorites, and I don't know if that's the best choice to have as like so important as to be in the title.
I think that
as a big Jane fanboy, that's my stance.
I think that we can expect a new direction for her character if they're bringing. There's a reason they would want to use her. And they would probably do a fair amount of reworking to her character, given today's climate.
I say bring it on. I definitely want to see this character again in this world again. And we saw a lot of it. It got more life than most shows do. But boy, I want to see what Daria is doing now.
No, and I do. Back to that Biff Naked character real quick. I do. That is something that does happen for sure, especially in high school. But I kind of wish there had been even if, I don't know, what if Jane had found out she was attracted to women? Like eventually she tells herself like, oh, you know what? No, I'm not. You had me questioning my sexuality, but I'm definitely straight. It's like, wouldn't it have been more interesting if she had seen that she was pan?
Make her a little bit more fluid.
Exactly.
I mean, the capper to that was relief that she was not attracted to women.
Yeah, but she's just like, oh, good.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I'm not a freak. I feel like they do that differently now. And honestly, I would be surprised if Jane hadn't experimented in high school at some point.
Yeah.
That
one of those artist types. I've heard about them. A few other things. We're almost into the episode itself. A few other things I wanted to talk about the show that really didn't cover, and maybe for the best. One of them is racism. There's a bit with Jody and Mac as to how they sort of have to overperform in a world run by white people, but they don't do anything explicit with race outside of that. And another thing is class. Like, Daria, despite how Tom is a very rich person and there's some issues with class there, Daria's family is very well off. I mean, look at the house that they live in. Her mom is a lawyer. Her dad is a loser, but he still has a nice white collar job when he can hold one down.
He's basically Jerry on Rick and Morty.
Yeah,
like they're the same guy.
if they made a Daria movie like if they made a Daria movie like 10 years ago, he would be played by Bryan Cranston. I feel like Jake Morgendorffer is a great character. I love all of his freakouts. But yeah, race and class are not really played with on the show that much.
They do rely on with Mac and Jody. They rely on that diversity quota joke a lot, and they do it in different ways.
Yeah.
Which, it's. So I grew up in basically Lawndale High. I'm very similar situation. And
my Catholic school was mostly white, so I definitely.
And it's very like, well, no, I guess what I'm saying is it's very like through the eyes of like a white teenager growing in white suburbia, and that joke fits with that. It's it's not. It definitely doesn't tackle the conversation in a complex way. It just seems like, this is what we went through.
It's not afraid of the idea, but I don't think it really wants to do much more than just lightly comment on it.
Yeah, it just wants to lightly comment on it and not actually really think about it and what it's like for those characters. It doesn't really take that.
My favorite bits with Jody are when she, like in this episode, is hitting her head against the system, that she's just like that she wants to exist. She's as smart as Daria, and she knows Daria will snarkily tell her, well, it's bullshit, right? She's like, yeah, I'm not stupid. What do you want from me? I got to go to college.
I really enjoy her frustration with Daria, where she feels like she has to play by all the rules, but Daria can just do whatever she wants and question everything.
Yes, that's true.
I do love her frustration over
that.
Well,
I'm in the student council.
So another topic that barely comes up is sex. Although it is something that is discussed in one episode with Daria. But that is a subject that does not really come along very often in this show.
I think from a standards and practices thing that it's not. They have to take kind of a stance of like, we're not telling you not to have sex, but Daria won't have sex, and other characters won't have sex in high school.
Well, they allude to it. I mean, even in like the second episode, Jane disappears from the party, and she's gone, and they just like people just keep going to like open the bathroom door and it's locked, and then later on she finds Daria, and Daria's like, where were you? And she makes up some excuse, and then Daria pulls a sock off of her shirt.
And Kevin and Brittany are definitely having
That's
sex.
true. They're always making out.
They allude to it. They don't talk about it in the writing so much, but
I think if you let in shows like that, when you let the main character have sex, it's a different choice. They're just like, to a degree, I think they're afraid that parent groups will tell them, like, well, if you show the main character having premarital sex and you're telling kids to do that, and that's wrong, and we're going to pick at you, and it'll just be a big problem.
Well, this was also during, like, the peak of Christians being mad at television.
That's true, yeah. It was the last time they could do it.
The Parents Television Council was, and so, they couldn't, but that also does feel like I don't know, Daria would have tried drugs once or fucked around once.
Drugs too, yeah.
I don't know if she would have. I was like I said, I was the misery chick. I was a 100 Daria, and I was always the thing about a character like Daria is she's really smart. She's like super intelligent and witty and pretty much afraid of life, though, in a lot of ways. It's like a defense mechanism.
I think, maybe what I'm saying is I wish I did those things in high school.
Yeah, I think that's what we're really getting
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
instead of waiting till I was like 22 to smoke my first joint, I should have had fun in high school. Why was I miserable?
At that age, intelligence as a defense mechanism is definitely a thing, and I used that. That was my thing.
So the final thing I noticed upon just thinking about the show a lot is one thing that doesn't come up a lot is the internet. As a male Daria of the age, I was never not online, and that continues to today. There's an episode where Jane has a webcam and she sort of monetizes that, a really early webcam parody episode. But Daria is never really online, and maybe she is she's more of a book nerd, and she doesn't care about technology, but I think Daria could get a lot out of being online in this world.
Yeah. It's funny. I literally just watched the episode where their local like cyber cafe gets shut down.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's so many funny jokes about the effect of technology on our social lives that is still super relevant to today.
I would think Upchuck. There had to be at least one joke about Upchuck looking at porn on the internet.
Yeah, but
that had to happen.
Daria should always be online.
Yeah, you would figure she would have been on time on IRRC
or on AIM with Jane.
Yeah, but it's that would distract them too much. I think they have to take online out of so many characters in fiction now because it's just like, well, then they wouldn't do anything. It's like these characters need to go places and do stuff.
Watching two people have a conversation on the phone in this episode sort of blew my mind. I was like, you don't do that. You're two young people. You got to text each other. But
I had a similar thing looking at seeing Quinn look at all of her photos that she printed out. I'm like, oh my God, this girl should be taking selfies, not showing her printed photograph.
That was the dark age of selfies, I guess.
When I was a young teen, we got a landline for a secondary line for the internet, and it became my landline.
Oh man, that's an honor.
It's a very Quinn
You're
thing,
finally
in my
free.
opinion.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, that was Quinn's power that she had her own phone line the whole time.
Yeah.
Yep. The internet came, and then I had my own phone number.
That was another of my favorite Daria bits where she got Quinn to get social again by threatening to dress like Quinn and take all of her friends away, and that's when Quinn was like, "Fine, I'll get out of my room." Like that showed that like Daria could look like that if she wanted. She doesn't, but she like she says about her smiling thing. Like that's what society expects of you, man, and she's not doing it.
I really dig Daria's look, though. It's very like she thought about it. She's thought about this is my look: army boots, the army jacket, the skirts.
I didn't have an army jacket, but my dad had been a prison guard, and he had a green prison jacket that I then started wearing through high school, and I'm certain it's because I saw Daria. Like I wore it all the time. I was like, I have my Daria jacket now. I'm cool like Daria.
So any other thoughts before we dive into the episode? We might have covered everything, but it's a great series. It's all on DVD. Unfortunately, all of the music is replaced because MTV didn't have any money. They weren't going to pay for – well, they had a lot of money. They didn't want to spend it on Daria. They didn't want to pay for original music. So in this era – you basically had access to MTV's entire library of music. Anything that had a video, or I don't even know how it worked, but so many popular songs appeared on Daria. And I got into so many bands just based on hearing music in Daria because people would immediately catalog what songs were in the episode after it aired, and I could go out and find them and go to a used CD store before Napster and then buy the CD. I got into like Violent Femmes and Cake and bands like that. But
speaking of music in Daria, during their finale movie premiere, I think it was Garbage premiered their music video, which is also super fitting because Garbage is totally like grungy Daria band.
I learned so many bands from it, or if I was listening to the band, it affirmed my interest in it. Like I was starting to be a big Radiohead fan, and then I heard it on episodes like this one. I was like, and like I definitely was being programmed by MTV and listening to what they told me to listen to.
100%.
I mean, the second I saw a Real Big Fish music video on there called Sell Out, I'm like, I'm going to buy this album.
I think I will.
Wait, what was Trent's band again? Mystic
Spiral.
Mystic Spiral.
Yeah.
Oh
man.
My God.
I love Trent. That was one of the most like realistic things I saw because I had lady friends in high school who they acted like they weren't into dudes, but a older brother who was in a band, they just like melted. Like, oh man.
It was so real for me. That whole the Daria Trent thing is so funny. Just a quick anecdote. When I was 16, I went to a concert with my friend. I told my mom I was going with all girls, but I went with all boys.
Oh my God. Yes.
And I had a huge crush on my friend's older brother, and he was a senior, and I was a sophomore.
It'll never work.
Yeah, and we went to a Blink-182 concert.
That's where romance happens. That's where it all starts.
And that's just in the background of all the Trent Daria interactions. It's one of the few times she actually goes like, "Hi, Trent." Like she is shy about it immediately, and I love that.
The Trent crush is so good. It's so well done.
It's a way that really humanizes Daria, because as much as she wants to be stoic and emotionless and very this black and white morality character, she will melt. She still has human emotions, and that's a great takedown of Daria. And I do like how they explore that, like, Trent is oblivious to the fact that Daria likes him in any way, and Daria eventually has to get over this crush and realize they're really bad for each other.
Well, Trent's just a dirtbag. Like, he's in a good way. He's not, like, you see him in this episode, he's not a bad guy, but he's also like a type of dude who I knew as well, who doesn't really go anywhere, do anything eventually with his life. And like, there's the Trent in my life is now 39, and he still thinks that band is really going to take off, and still lives with his parents.
Any day now.
Any day now.
So the Daria Trent stuff actually had me learn about the term shipping online. I was way into Daria online community at the time. I was reading the news group All TV Daria. I was going to websites like Six Sad World, and there was another big one that really cataloged all of the Daria stuff, like transcribed all the episodes, told you what music was in every one. But people were way into writing fanfic of Daria and Trent, and let me tell you, even the show says this is wrong. And now as I watch this as an adult, I'm like, no, Trent should not date this child in high school. That's gross.
And he doesn't. That's probably also why he's not thinking of her that way. He's like, yeah, you're a kid. Like, this is wrong.
There was speaking of your online Daria resources, there was a Daria blog, which was canon, and all the characters partook in.
Oh, really? Is that still online, like Internet Database or Internet Archive?
There's archives of it. I don't believe the original blog still exists.
Okay.
There are sites, though, that they are still up and running for Daria.
I was searching for Daria News Online just because they reran the shit out of it, and I was just like, when is there going to be a new episode? Yeah. This takes forever. And I remember waiting like months for them to finally announce when Is It College Yet was going to air, because everybody on the site just knew what happened, and they're just like, well, I wonder when Is It College Yet is going to be out, because maybe it leaked at some convention or something. But
well, it took a very long time for each of those episodes to be made. All of the animation was done in Korea, and it took like 10 months for them to take an episode from start to finish.
It was not as fast a machine as the Mike Judge box.
Yeah, and it was only 13 episodes per year, 13 per year, so it was not a lot.
I've been waiting for you to bring up Mike Judge's name, because there was like this super interesting interview he had with the AV Club where they asked him about Daria. He basically said he gave the MTV, he basically gave them the rights to make Daria if he didn't have to do anything for it.
Except for make money off of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know if he does. It's not his character that he created, but I don't know who actually has the rights to characters on a production so kind of unprofessional at that time.
I just have to read his. Can I read his quote?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I have to read it because it's that, like, really, dude? He said, wasn't crazy about some people they hired and thought that they were trying to show that they could do something without me. A normal network would never do that kind of stuff unless they were a real asshole to them. I feel like Beavis and Butthead helped a lot of these people's careers, and they do the series without even consulting me on it. But I heard the show was pretty good. I think Glenn Eichler was a good choice to write on it. I've honestly never seen more than 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay. I guess he's polite about it. I should say the context of that is I don't know the full details, and I'm sure they're documented somewhere, but Mike Judge signed a very, very bad deal with MTV just because he was this guy from Texas and he never had a TV show before. And when the show became a hit, he was still making his nothing money. So I believe he threatened to leave, or he threatened to take people off the show. And there was a lot of tense negotiations to the point where at a certain point in Beavis and Butthead, they put created by Mike Judge on the title card. So something happened behind the scenes, like some kind of strife.
I get him being mad at the company like that, and I mean, if he already has an axe to grind with MTV, then he sees Daria as just them exploiting him one more time. But
sure,
but at least he can give it. I'm glad he could at least give it the slight lip service of saying, other people say it's good.
Like Glenn did write for Beavis and Butthead, so I'm sure he knows him and worked with him. So saying he's a good choice.
Yeah, but it's also not. I mean, I'm glad Mike Judge wasn't involved. The show wouldn't be this show if Mike Judge was involved, maybe it would have been a good, different show, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't be this show at all.
No.
We'll never know. And the last thing I want to bring up before we jump into the episode is there are some ancillary Daria products, and I was going to bring one of them, but I completely forgot. I own one of them. So there are 2 books. This was back in the era in which TV shows would have books.
The Daria Diaries.
Exactly. That's the one I have. I did not buy the follow-up, the Daria database, because I was like, I have a computer now. I'll just look up things about Daria. And also the CD-ROM, not really game, but sort of just like fuck around with this CD-ROM thing. It was called Daria's Inferno.
Oh.
And actually, Glenn Eichler wrote the Dr. Katz book, Me at a Glance, I think it's called.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I think he wrote a few of those TV-based
That's
books.
pretty cool. Now, I think I had that Daria Diary too. I bought most books that were TV show books. Like I bought the Bart Simpson Diary, the Simpson Family Album, the King of the Hill one, multiple of the Beavis and Butthead ones. I even recently brought a Steven Universe one as well.
That's more of a like production book, though.
Well,
right?
no. So I bought the art book, but they also did have an in-universe book called Keep Beach City Weird, written by the weeb guy of the town in Steven
that's great.
Universe.
I didn't know about that. It was much more primitive time where it's like I can't watch the show whenever I want, so I can look at this book and think about watching it and all of my memories of the show.
Very much so.
So let's get into the episode, The Misery Chick.
When you tried to kiss me, I only bit your tongue. When you tried to get me together, I only came undone. When you tried to tell me the one for me was you, I was in your mattress back in 1982. Daria, I won't be soothed. Daria, yeah, I won't be soothed over like smooth.
Hey, everybody, this is Bob, and I don't like the podcast unless I have a reason.
And I just love football.
That Jane is a little more snarky than that.
Yes. Okay. What if I threw up on your shoe?
That's better. That's better. Hey, everybody, back to normal podcasting voices. Thanks for listening to this episode of What a Cartoon. We all enjoy Daria so much, and once again, I want to rewatch an entire series I don't have time for, but perhaps you have time, and it is on Hulu. Is that correct, Henry?
That is correct, though the original music is taken out. Sorry, they still have the theme song. But yeah, all 65 episodes are on Hulu right now. And if you don't have Hulu, you can sign up for a free 30-day trial of it at tiny.cc/TSHulu. TS is in Talking Simpsons. Tiny.cc/TS Hulu. Sign up there, and a little bit of money gets thrown back to your buddies at Talking Simpsons.
And yeah, and you can enjoy 5 seasons of Daria, and it's all good. It's all good stuff.
And so many other of the shows that we have done on this very podcast.
Yeah, like Venture Brothers. Is Fooly Cooley on there?
Fooly Cooley as well.
Family Guy.
Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah, so check out Hulu if you haven't, and if you sign up through us, we get a little kickback that'll help the show. And if you want to help the show more, and if you want to hear next week's episode right now, you could be listening to our take on the Tick episode, The Tick versus the Tick, right now if you sign up at the $5 level. So what you get at that level is every episode of What a Cartoon a week ahead of time and ad-free, and you get every episode of Talking Simpsons a week ahead of time and ad-free. And you also get all of our Patreon exclusive bonus podcasts, and there is so much going on the Patreon. Let me describe to you what is happening there right now. We have the entire first season of Talking Simpsons, which you might not have heard. We also have all of Talking Critic, 23 episodes describing the entire run of the Critic in excruciating detail with clips and references and so much going on the Critic. We have the entire first season of Talking Futurama. We may do more Futurama, we may not. It all depends on what our patrons want from us, but we have 13 episodes of Talking Futurama waiting right there for you. Henry, what else do we have going on at the $5 level at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons?
It's also home to so many of our exclusive interviews with Simpsons alums and other animation folks, too. We've talked to David Silverman, who had worked on the show from the first short. We talked to Mike Reese, who has worked on The Simpsons for 30 years since season 1. We talk as well to animator Ian Jones-Quartey, the creator of OKKO and a former executive producer on Steven Universe. We also have our season wrap-ups where we go through every bit of news that happened during that year of The Simpsons, and we do the deleted scenes too. And if you get at the $10 premium level, you not only get all of that, access to those hundreds of hours of content, you also get our monthly premium video that includes the deleted scenes that we did for Simpsons Season 7, the deleted scenes we did for Futurama Season 1, and all of the Simpsons shorts. We rewatched them and did commentary.
That's right. It was so fun to revisit the shorts. You can just see the gradual evolution of The Simpsons and what they kept and what they didn't keep. So yes, please check us out at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. We have so much going on there, and we love just releasing bonus stuff out of the blue. We love surprising you with bonus podcasts and bonus interviews and things like that. And you get the most bang for your buck if you are a subscriber. If you can't afford $5 a month, even $1 a month as a little tip to say thank you would help us a lot. If everyone who listened gave us $1 a month, we'd be Chester J. Lampwick style billionaires in our solid gold mansion and with our rocket cars. But yes, any little bit helps. But thank you so much, folks. We will let you get back to Daria's Misery Chick episode.
And a hammer in my head, thinking about my girls and the ways they might be dead. They should be safe at home and warm and by the fire. He said it warm enough to sing in that heavenly choir. God damn it, learn to track, jerk. God damn it,
glad you got your horn to work.
God damn it,
stay in your lane.
There's a hurricane coming and I'm going insane.
Quit swearing like a drunkard and get right with the Lord.
We're a very moral family with a baby on board.
And I say, God damn it!
So we are now at The Misery Chick, which aired on July 21st, 1997. And again, as we pointed out earlier, much earlier in this episode, this is a real turning point for Daria. Before Daria owns all the normies, now one of the normies owns her, and she's got to think about it. That's really sort of the premise for this episode. I'm not giving it any justice, by the way, but this all starts off on the aftermath of Picture Day, in which Quinn is showing off all of her pictures, and of course they're gorgeous. And Daria's parents want to know about hers.
Fine choice. What did you pick, Daria?
Black cloud swallowing Chernobyl.
Come on, Daria. Where's your school picture?
Wow, that's sharp focus.
Daria, just once. Why can't you smile when somebody takes your picture?
I don't like to smile unless I have a reason.
Daria, people judge you by your expression.
Yes, and I believe there is something intrinsically wrong with that system. I have dedicated myself to changing it.
Hey, did you guys see these?
Quinn has many photos, but yes.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a great scene to establish sort of the thesis for the episode of some of the themes in which Daria does not like to emote. Daria is sort of out of touch with people. That's sort of how I'm reading this.
It's totally like there's a lot of these like, you know, for girls, people are always telling you to smile,
yes.
smile more. And it's so real. Oh my God. My grandmother always told me to smile. It was just like every day. If I wasn't, she was telling me to do it. So it's funny because it's like subtle, but it's there. I love it.
I like the inflection on Helen too.
Yeah.
Like, by your smile. Like you can hear her smiling as she says it.
And a lot of her stories in the show is like the struggles of being a woman in a professional workplace and how she's got to be like a ball breaker to get anything done because no one will respect her. I really like the stories involving Helen.
Yeah, Helen, they deepen Helen's character quite a lot, and I think you get to see how she, don't want to say sell out, but how she has to do things she doesn't want to do to provide for a family. And now I'm on the Helen side of things. I'm probably around the age they wrote Helen at in the show. Now it's more like early 40s, but that Helen, I can get Helen's frustration that she's just like, come on, Daria, what do we got to do this every time? Can't you make this easy one?
I can sense me interacting with my parents and me being a smart ass, just play along with these boring society things. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, Jake is just like, he doesn't know what to say. It's like, I don't say anything wrong.
He's complimenting the camera.
Yep.
That's our one line from Jake in this episode. I'm sorry there's not more. I really enjoy Jake.
They did a musical episode, and his song, God Damn It, was pretty...
I think I'm going to put it in this one, this episode. So we go to Lawndale High. Tommy Sherman is going to make his grand reappearance after graduating 3 years earlier. And we get a nice little scene between Kevin and Mac talking about who Tommy Sherman is and why it's so important that he's being welcomed back to Lawndale. And our first encounter with Tommy Sherman doesn't come off very well in this scene. In fact, he should be arrested.
I see one thing about Lawndale football has improved a lot since I was unanimously voted most valuable player. The cheerleaders.
You're Tommy Sherman.
You know your sports.
My boyfriend's Kevin Thompson. He's quarterback of the team. He worships you.
That's great. Listen, they're putting me up at the Lawndale Manor. Why don't you and I head back there, order some champagne, get horizontal, and you can find out just how big a hero I am.
Didn't you hear what I said? My boyfriend is your biggest fan?
What are you telling me? He wants to watch? I don't know. All right, he can watch. Hey, where are you going? Did someone flash the bimbo signal?
So yes, on his way to commit legit crimes in the high school. What is he doing? Just wandering around the high school, just like propositioning every woman? I guess that's what Daria says later. Yeah.
I mean, he's a really good, realistic interpretation of Matthew McConaughey's character in Dazed and Confused.
Yeah. He even looks like him.
Yeah, except he has a real broken nose. Like his nose is all fucked up because of
dented into his face.
But that he's the total creep who is skeezing on underage girls in the high school with his knowledge of I am allowed to do this because I'm a popular football player.
And despite his own perception of himself, he is just a giant towny loser, and this is his one claim to fame, and it's quickly fading, which is it could be why he's overcompensating like this.
His claim, just in case we didn't bring it up, he was the star quarterback.
Yes, actually.
Years prior.
I have Jane explaining Tommy Sherman's origins.
What's the big deal about this football guy anyway? He was quarterback 3 years ago when the school won the state championship. My brother knew him. Well, why name the goalposts after him? Why not the whole stadium? Goal post. See, his trademark was he always wanted to run the touchdown in himself. A real team player. But he couldn't keep himself from waving to the crowd when he did it. They'd cheer, he'd wave, and wave! He'd run right into the goalpost. What an intelligent young man. He broke his own nose twice. Then in the playoff, the week before the state championship, he scored the winning touchdown and hit the goalpost so hard, he cracked his helmet. He was unconscious for 6 days. Miraculously, he woke up the night before the big game feeling great. The next day, he led the team to victory. Stirring, isn't it?
I love that story. It's even funnier in a world of concussions, but it's when we're more aware of them. But I think this is a cool, that story coming from Kevin is an inspiring story of he always ran in the touchdown. He was so dedicated. He ran out of the hospital and went straight to the football field. But from Jane's telling, it's just he's a very damaged individual.
Selfish and stupid.
Who also, who is so selfish and full of himself, he will almost die rather than not wave.
They really hammer in that he's a terrible person very quickly.
Yes, yeah. Well,
he's not alive very long, so they
have 4 minutes of life, and I love how Jane, when talking to Jody about him, she says football, which I love that saying of football.
Yeah,
How could you play football?
Jody is asking Daria and Jane for help, and of course they are very sarcastic to her. And I like Jody's reaction. She just is again frustrated. Just I need help, guys. These jokes are great, but I need help. Jody can't get beyond the introduction to Tommy Sherman, and everyone is struggling with. We have to be nice to this guy, but he's clearly an asshole, and we shouldn't care about him. And his achievements aren't really great in the grand scheme of things. But it should be noted that at Lawndale High, they are installing 1 new goalpost. They can't afford 2. 1 new safety goalpost that will break apart if someone runs into it, rather than split your skull open. Oh, sorry, Sam.
No, I was about to jump into that.
Well, and that they had budget cuts. They could not afford 2 goalposts, which that was the style at the time of cutting school budgets. Fortunately, that doesn't happen at all anymore.
Nope.
Now. No.
And football's no longer important.
Nope.
After joking about his character, Jane and Daria are both making jokes about how much he sucks. Jane makes a joke about how he should die, or wouldn't it be something along those lines?
Yeah, well, so Daria gets to see him be an asshole 3 times, which is important. She needs to witness all of his shitty things so that that way that Daria isn't just making an assumption about a guy that she's heard about, that she got to see him live try a proposition or insult every person around him, even his biggest fan who if he was a better bad person, he would take advantage of Kevin's sycophancy, but instead he just insults him to his face.
Yeah, we have to assume, so we see Daria after the Brittany and Tommy thing, and we have to assume that she is there to see Tommy make fun of Kevin for being short and scrawny, and make fun of Mac for his middle name, Jordan, I believe.
I do love that. Honestly, Tommy's the one time I agree with Tommy when he's like, "That's sick, man." It's like, your dad shouldn't change your middle name at 12 because he saw Michael Jordan play.
It's a real broken clock thing with Tommy Sherman. So eventually, this is the scene where we get Tommy running into Daria. So Daria and Jane are approaching their lockers, and Tommy believes that they want to talk to him, but he is wrong.
You're on my locker.
Do you know who I am? Tommy Sherman?
I know the whole school is turning itself inside out because of some egotistical football player. And I've seen you insult or proposition just about everyone you've come across. So my guess is that you're the football player guy. Congratulations, you must have worked very hard to become such a colossal jerk so quickly.
You know what Tommy Sherman's gonna do now? He's gonna go out onto the football field and check out his new goal post. He's gonna read the plaque and think about all the people who admire him. But you wouldn't know anything about that. You're one of those misery chicks, always moping about what a cruel world it is, making a big deal about it so people won't notice you're a loser.
I don't think he likes you. That doesn't bother me. What bothers me is that jerk is going to be treated like a hero for the rest of his life.
Well, maybe he won't live that long.
Come on, you know wishes don't come true.
Oh my God! The goalpost fell! Tommy Sherman's dead! He's dead!
It's the end of Act 1.
Why did end of Act 1?
Yeah, I did not see that coming when I first sat down and watched this episode in 1997.
No, me neither. So that speech is great wish fulfillment. It was a speech I was like, man, I wish I could tell the jerks who think they're so important. But I think Tommy's speech is an important one too, because it also shows you how guys like him don't have to think about their problem. You could tell that's kind of the emptiness of getting a one-upman speech like that from Daria, which is a privileged dude like Tommy can just go well, listen to what you said, but now I'm just going to go back to everybody loving me. See you later. Blah.
Yeah, a lot of the thesis or what the themes are discussing is how Daria does think too much, and other people really don't have to. So yeah, that's dead on, Henry.
Get out of your head, Daria. But and also, it's not their fault he's dead. But had Daria, if we're talking just pure causation.
Butterfly effect stuff going on here.
Daria shows up to her locker where he was just standing and wouldn't have moved by telling him to leave her locker, which he does. He then walks away to be right in the right place to be crushed by that goalpost. If Daria hadn't said, "Excuse me," and made him walk away, he wouldn't have gone to where the goalpost fell and crushed him.
I never thought of it that way. No wonder Jane is so freaked out.
If they investigated that too much in the episode, it would have fucked them up. It would have made it harder for them to just say it was a freak accident. It's yeah, but you kind of told them to go over there.
Well, no, she didn't tell him. He was true. I'm going to go over there and worship myself because I'm the best.
He decided which way to go ultimately, but Daria was the catalyst to get him to move.
Well, my constant anxiety tries to find ways to blame myself again, so I use that power on Daria just now.
So they have a memorial service at the school. Miss Lee, I don't have any clips of this. Mrs. Lee is doing a very tortured football analogy about life.
She's underrated as a character. I like her. One of my favorite episodes is when the school gets a Surge or Mountain Dew style sponsorship and it drives her crazy all of the rules the soda company has. That was a really good one.
Kevin is not taking it very well to the point where he's embarrassing himself. And at one point during the ceremony, Daria kind of rolls her eyes at Jane, and Jane looks uncomfortable, which is the first sign that something is up between the two.
I was just going to say that's great character acting on there, because Daria is just shaking her head can you believe these people? And meanwhile, Jane's just God, Daria, read the room. I'm sad.
Yeah, Jane's upset that somebody died, and Daria doesn't understand why people care because he was such clearly a bad person.
Yeah, right to both of them.
And likely a criminal. Not just
or on his way to being a criminal.
Mm-hmm. No, I'm guessing there are some crimes in his past that are being covered up by the town.
I was going to say, One Sweet Day is a great song.
Yes, it is sorry.
No, it's the kind of thing. It's perfectly high school approved song that you could sing at a assembly like that.
Also, it was a major hit at the time.
Yeah.
It was like, Mariah Carey, Boyz II Men.
It is sort of the default pop funeral song, if you want to call it that. Just like I Believe I Can Fly would become the default pop graduation song, where it's like just a generic bland song you could play that has, inspirational themes.
Unfortunately, in my year, graduating year, the hit song, we got the pop song Vitamin C's Graduation Day, which is just
that's what I got.
Written to be that fucking song. Like, I'd rather have gotten, though then again, my friends who graduated the year before, they got the Sunscreen song. Which, don't forget to wear, and remember, don't forget to wear your sunscreen.
A guy giving it life advice over like a drum loop.
Yep, yeah. I guess I prefer Graduation Day above Vitamin C.
What was your graduation song, Sam?
It was Vitamin C.
Vitamin C persisted that much longer? I thought it faded from all of our memories after 2002.
Nope.
I was wrong.
It was
not to teachers.
I might have gotten Good Riddance Time of Your Life, Green Day.
That's a goodie too.
Oh, I got some of that. We had like a graduation soundtrack, and they alternately used it through all of the final things. So prom, graduation day. We had a graduation night.
Oh, I had grad night.
Those are all very different moods, though. You don't want your prom night themes to be goodbye, I'll never see you again.
Let's just say I graduated high school in New Jersey, and there was a lot of Bon Jovi involved.
Well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
No Bruce Springsteen in there?
There was some of that,
too. Okay, I would expect that.
Too much.
My grad night was fun because I was a straight edge kid, and just so having all the free food you could eat was all I wanted. Like, milkshake, and then I'll play video games with the people who also graduated. I didn't realize that grad night really was just like, don't drink and drive. That's the whole point of grad night. It's to trap you all in the same place so you don't get drink and drive, which, hey, a good plan.
It's a good trick.
Yes.
So here is Daria alienating Jane with her naughty attitude about this whole death thing.
It's weird. One minute he's standing there calling me a loser. The next minute he's dead.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy Ms. Lee was talking about didn't bear any resemblance to the guy we met. But still.
Listen, I'm going home to change. I think I'm going to go for a run.
I'll walk you.
Actually, I think I want to walk by myself for a while. See you later.
Cold,
yes.
Jane.
And Daria frowns. Again, they didn't really do this on the show until this point. So if you're watching as it was airing, this is sort of a shocking move, one you didn't expect because, again, they were sort of the comedy duo. They played off each other so well. But to see a schism in their relationship was sort of like, oh, no.
Trouble in paradise.
Yeah. Jane and Daria are usually on the same page. And the Jane and Daria stuff in this really gets me because it does remind me so much of like high school friendships I had, and when you would get in a fight with a high school friend, you wouldn't even really remember why you got in a fight, and then you'd eventually either become friends with them again or just never talk to them again. And I never had the moments that like Jane and Daria had to finally get back on the same page with a friend because perhaps it was guy code, or perhaps it was just that we were not emotionally intelligent enough in general. I'm just saying, like, well, if you were to say your feelings, then you're just being gay. So don't say your feelings.
The detente.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I feel like from the beginning they were very different characters, but it would be so easy to write Daria and Jane as like two identical smartasses. But here we see that Jane is a little less afraid to be human than Daria is, for sure.
Yeah, and at this point in the story, I believe people start coming to Daria out of the woodwork.
Yeah.
Because they're like, Daria, you're sad. Like, how do you deal with being miserable?
In fact, there's one scene, a very long talky scene, where three characters in a row come to Daria, and the first is Kevin.
But I mean, it really makes you think. You got any, like, words of wisdom or whatever?
Like what?
I don't know. I figure you think about depressing stuff a lot. You're that type, you know?
No, I don't know.
I mean, the guy was a hero. A really good quarterback. Everybody liked him. Kind of hunky, you know. Not that I'd noticed something like that. And now he's just like the dead guy.
Tell me, Kevin, did he remind you of anyone?
What do you mean?
Maybe his death hit a little too close to home?
I get what you're saying. But I don't believe in ghosts, Daria.
What?
You're saying he got hit on the head out there on the football field. The team's home. And now it's going to be cursed or something, and we're going to lose all our games. I'm a little surprised, Daria.
That makes 2 of us.
Cute scene.
They make him, he really is a literal idiot.
Yeah.
But
He's so stupid.
But for the first time, we almost get to him here because he shows some, emotional...
He thinks just for a little bit.
He thinks for just a second. Just a second.
I mean, everyone in the show, in this episode especially, is sort of quietly patronizing to Daria, but I do enjoy how Kevin's cruelty is just very naive. He's not even aware of his cruelty. He's like, I guess you must think about that stuff all the time.
Yeah, you're always unhappy, right? You're always... I love his delivery of, and we're going to lose all our games. And I kind of wish if they had a little more time and they wanted to just be sillier, they could have just had a B plot of
him being afraid of ghosts,
of him thinking it is haunted, and him trying to to purify the football field,
or just a line in there to have him convinced of the ghost. That would have been funny.
So I do think it's funny how Kevin is very much like a Beavis or Butthead, and that Daria will mess with him and he won't know. But in this scenario, Daria is trying to be honest with him, but then Kevin thinks she's messing with him. So I like that them playing with that idea.
Psychology.
Yeah,
she cried wolf too much.
Do you have the clip of Brittany?
Yeah, let's hear it.
It really makes you think. I mean, you're used to being all gloomy and depressed and thinking about bad stuff.
Why does everyone keep saying that?
So I thought that maybe you could give me some tips.
Well, I guess what I'd say, Brittany, is that here's this guy who really wasn't very nice, and you didn't like him at all. You're sorry that he died.
I am!
But you don't think you feel sorry enough. And you're worried that you're not as nice a person as you thought.
Yeah! It's like I feel bad, but I think I should feel worse, and not feeling worse makes me feel bad all over again.
The truth is, Brittany, that you are nice, or you wouldn't be feeling bad at all right now.
So you're saying that feeling bad about not feeling worse is good?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
I think with these scenes, Daria is really exploring her own feelings as much as she is trying to reluctantly help people.
She's reluctant, but she is also being empathetic, which is great. Which is great to see from her because she's always been very emotionally removed from situations with her peers.
The assumptions that you would make on Daria in these situations when they're coming at her so vulnerable is she could just keep being snarky to them and just be like, yeah, you wouldn't think of that, stupid.
Or just walk away from them and say, I'm not helping you. But yeah, I guess she does feel some sort of obligation too.
Yeah.
Well, I think that this is more for even the supporting cast than it is for Daria. It is for Daria also, but it makes the supporting cast much more interesting to play with in the future.
I agree, yeah.
Because if they don't start opening up more, if they don't start going deeper with them, they really just become flat. They'll become like the flat stereotypes that they were introduced
Brittany especially is in danger of that. And I also, Brittany gets so many good lines here. I like right before the clip, she says and Tommy was a jerk.
Yeah.
And then she the way she whispers jerk, and then she's so upset at herself for saying that, and also are very insistent I am.
Yeah. I do really like Brittany in this episode where, I mean, Kevin is stupid and Brittany might act stupid, but she's really not. Mm-hmm. And she's not unaware of how bad Tommy Sherman is, especially in the beginning. They could have made her stupid, naive enough to think that he was not hitting on her or whatever.
Right, but she knew that he was being a jerk. This is, I love this part particularly because Daria's advice that she gives to Brittany here is, it's oddly a moment where Daria is not being very self-aware because she says, not being upset about him, not being as upset as you think you should be about him dying because he was a bad person, shows that you are a good person because you care enough to know that you should have more empathy or sadness for a human's death, and it's it's a really good advice. But it's funny because she's saying it, but she doesn't know it because she's still mad that everybody is sad about this shitty guy's death. Mm-hmm. And so even though she knows what the right thing is here, she's still being stubborn and mad about it.
Yeah.
Because
she can say that to Brittany, but she can't tell that to herself.
She can't follow her own advice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and also it's a great emotional place to stick Daria in because this person, she just hates this Tommy guy. She had no feelings for him, and she would prefer to never think about him again, and yet every person comes up to her to talk about it. And then on top of that, not
teacher.
intentionally tell her like, oh, and you suck, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, so think about this guy you hate, and we also all assume that you're miserable all the time. So.
Yeah, and even the teacher, Mr. O'Neill, I don't have that clip, by the way, but he is like, he's in tears, and again, he does, I believe he says it really makes you think, and he does do the same, like, oh, you must think about depressing things all the time, Daria.
I love that stuff with Mr. O'Neill because he's such a great character that you're used to bad teachers who are just like not nice to her or just bad to the students. But this is the teacher who wants to be.
Yeah.
He wants to be the one who teaches the kids, who truly connects with them, and he'll be the guy in movies who reaches those kids. But instead, he makes the same assumptions the kids are.
Yeah.
Like he's like, oh, you must be thinking about suicide right now, right, Daria? Is what he's implying to her. She's like, no. Like,
I think unlike Beavis and Butthead has a similar character, the show is less cruel to Mr. O'Neill, and he believes in his students a lot more. And there's a scene later where he's just like, oh, yes, Daria is going to talk. This will save the day.
Yes,
Daria has to answer this question.
I mean, I think I was that for some teachers. Not to brag about my, but I was the one a teacher could count on. Probably you guys felt this too. Your teacher could be like, well, look, nobody else here read this. Could you read this? Could you just tell me what I want to hear?
I wasn't that good of a student.
Okay.
I was a Jane in that regard. Circle C if you don't know. No, yeah, I was going to say, I was definitely a disaffected youth, and I did not give any shit about authority.
I never did homework, but then I'd come together in the end on the test. But I hated, if I tried hard on it, then I would tell, my great mantra was, if I try my best on this and then fail, then I'll be sad. So if I don't try that hard and then barely succeed, then I know I could have done great if I tried. So
it's a terrible lesson.
It's a recipe for
don't
success.
Listen to us.
Yeah.
This is...
We've all become better people in the past 15 to 20 years.
I like to think.
So, yes, Mr. O'Neill comes up to Daria, same thing. And Daria is on the phone with Jane. She knows something's up, and she wants to hang out.
You're the girl of the hour. Maybe I should talk to you.
Yeah, right. I can't believe the way people are reacting. I mean, yeah, it's terrible what happened, but it's not as if he was nice to anyone. They're acting like they lost a friend.
Boy, Daria, nothing gets through to you, does it?
What's that supposed to mean?
The guy died, and you're talking about what a jerk he was.
I just said, look, you want to get some pizza?
I'm going running.
After?
I don't know. It's going to be a long run. I'll see you later.
Snubbed once again. Again, the strangeness of seeing two people on the phone really
it pained me.
It bothered me.
It reminded me of painful phone conversations as well.
Especially, I mean, they don't have the technology then, but if you're on the outs with a friend or you're not sure what's going on with a friend, I'm usually like the Twitter DM or the text or whatever because you don't want to commit to a. It's also a pride thing. You don't want to commit to a phone call, and also I never call anyone. But
I'm a talky person.
Okay, I guess we're all different. But let me know in the comments. Are you a talky person or are you a texter?
I forgot how cool Daria's room is. I love that room. Like
mattress room.
Yeah, the lore of the room, which they bring up like once, is that it was a troubled person lived in that room. It was a padded room.
Yeah, so, it was like the crazy schizophrenic aunt.
Yeah, and there's like bars on the windows too. Yeah, it's great. It's great. I love Daria's room. And even Quinn comes in. I don't have a clip of that, but Quinn comes in and she needs to be consoled by Daria as well.
Even at home, Daria cannot escape from it.
Everyone wants therapy.
She gives Quinn the good idea of doing a fundraiser with the fashion club.
Yeah, to buy the thing that killed him anyway. And then it's a funny little end to the scene of like, it's the thought that counts. Like,
I also feel like the show is not trying to say this, but people are going to Daria because she's Daria, but also women are expected to do a lot of the emotional work for other people. Like, I feel like that is not something that's being explicitly stated, but it's something that I do see in all of these scenes where people just are tormenting Daria with all of their baggage.
It is a lot about emotional labor everyone is asking Daria to do for her, for them, which makes it better in the final joke when she finally starts getting paid for it.
With Sandy approaches her.
Yes, that is great. Yeah. Finally, she can make some money off of this in a very clever scene we'll get to.
But Helen trying to, all she wants to do is connect with Daria. I feel so much more for the parents in these than I used to. And she's like, well, come on, Daria, what do you think? She's like, I'm great. I'm the misery chick. I'm out of here. I'm like, Oh, man. So
Yeah.
Helen just wanted to reach out to you, Daria.
I do recall like so many times where I could have been thoughtful or communicative, and I was like, no, I'll be a funny smartass.
It's funnier to me if I said a sarcastic thing to my mom and hurt her feelings.
Yeah, we're on better terms now, by the way.
Yeah, same.
So Daria heads over to see Jane just to make sure, she's okay, things are okay between them. And she does confront Trent. There's a bit of awkwardness with Trent. Trent knows Jane is home and sort of sends Daria up to her room. And that's when the big confrontation happens. And Jane is listening to Paranoid Android, by the way. She's that cool in 1997. But I did get all of their fight. Here's the first half.
Well, what do you want to talk for anyway? You don't care about what happened.
How can you say that?
You've been treating it like, oh, well, another stupid day. The guy died.
I know he died. I'm sorry he died. But I'm not going to pretend he was some great person when he wasn't. People aren't upset because Tommy Sherman died. They're upset because they're going to die.
That's understandable.
Okay. But you know what I've been hearing? You know how I feel, Daria. You're gloomy. I knew I could talk to you, Daria. You're always miserable. Tragedy hits the school and everyone thinks of me. The popular guy died and now I'm popular because I'm the misery chick. But I'm not miserable. I'm just not like them.
It really makes you think.
Funny. Thanks a lot.
No, that's why they want to talk to you. When they say, you're always unhappy, Daria, what they mean is, you think, Daria. I can tell because you don't smile. Now this guy died and it's making me think. And that hurts my little head and makes me stop smiling. So tell me how you cope with thinking all the time, Daria, until I can get back to my normal vegetable state.
I love that.
Isn't it great? The scene or
So
what,
good.
Jane? I mean, what particularly do you like about this scene?
When she says, I'm not miserable, I'm just not like them.
That's great. Yeah, I do. And the whole what really makes you think thing is actual not just a platitude. It's really literal when Jane breaks it down, and I do like that.
Which is what that's what I love the scene. It's Jane trying to get through to Daria and also express that like she was tired of Daria, I think, because she was just like, so are you a sociopath, Daria?
Yeah.
Like, do you not feel anything that a person died?
Yeah.
But and also that like Daria, I was totally Daria in those situations too. Just like I know the real reason why people are sad. They're not sad
Yeah.
about this person. They're sad that they're going to die. And Jane's reaction of like, understandable, like fucking duh. Like, is it bad that these people are
Yeah.
afraid of their own mortality? Why are you going to punish them for that?
Right. I think we all know. I mean, maybe I'm making assumptions here, but we've all had somebody that we know in our lives pass away who, wasn't that awesome.
Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, for sure.
And it gives you mixed feelings. I really, really identified with this episode.
And as a shitty teenager, I probably would have been like, oh, fuck them. They're probably in hell now or whatever. But now I do feel conflicted, and I do feel that, like, you know what? I don't like this person, but I'll just keep my mouth shut because I don't want to ruin other people mourning their mourning process or whatever.
Or make it about you and your feelings too, which...
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like Daria is right, and Jane agrees, yeah, he sucked. But being right is not more important in many cases than being like human or being empathetic. I feel like a lot of this is breaking down Daria as a logic lord and getting her to like be more emotional and be more empathetic.
Yeah. Pull her away from the nihilism a little bit.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So
yeah, and I like finally Daria shows her frustration, just like, how can you say that? Like she's also mad that her best friend, who she thought knew her better than all the other people who were making assumptions about her, even her best friend thinks like, well, yeah, you don't care, like you don't give a shit about any of this. She's like, that's not true.
I really thought so. I identify with this as an adult because, and Henry knows all about this. When the Netflix series BoJack Horseman came out, I swear to God, Henry's already laughing. I swear to God, 6 people
me included
came up to me or like messaged me or talked to me like, it's so depressing, you'd love it. Like sort of like, you think about sad things all the time, Bob. You love BoJack Horseman. So I haven't watched BoJack Horseman because of everyone tormenting me with their correct analysis of me. So I do feel like
love it.
The misery dude, if you will.
I have a really weird reason why I can't like BoJack Horseman.
Oh, what is that?
My ex-boyfriend used to wear one of those horse mask things.
Oh, no.
What,
Yeah.
in public?
around.
Okay.
Oh,
So
dear.
now it's
And-
like, how did he get a cartoon?
Well, also he's black, so like he looks like BoJack Horseman with it
okay.
on.
Ah, okay.
I can't like this is so weird. I
Wow,
literally
that is-
can't look at BoJack Horseman without thinking of my ex.
Oh, that sucks. Man.
We
that's-
both have our own
that's
BoJack issues.
Yeah.
Well, I love BoJack.
I need to go to therapy to work through mine. But here is some compromise.
So then why have you been avoiding me?
Because I've been trying not to think about the way we were making jokes about him dying, and then boom, it happened.
We didn't have anything to do with the guy dying. It was a freak accident.
Henry disagrees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like it when I say people should die and then they do. I don't want that kind of responsibility. At least not until I've got a job in middle management.
You didn't make him die.
You're not the misery chick.
All right then.
All right, then.
He shouldn't have died.
No.
But he wasn't a nice guy.
No.
I really enjoy how they explore this complicated issue, and the struggle between being right and being a nice person is very difficult, and it's hard to say like what the real right answer is here, but they have a compromise.
I think it's important. This is a perfect time to mention that all of the voice acting was recorded separately from each other.
Even cheaper than having everyone together, I guess.
Yeah, so it's pretty impressive how they were able to pull off these conversations because this sounds so good. It sounds like two friends talking to each other, and it's really good work from the actors.
Again, I have to give it up for Tracy Grandstaff. She was hired to be a monotone speaker and deliver very wry comebacks to characters, but they're asking her to do a lot more than she signed up for, and she's doing a great job. And Wendy Hoops, again, she's like the MVP of the show. Great readings for not being face to face with another person. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and it comes through. It's a very emotional moment for both of them, and they I think it showed them where they could go for future seasons too. Like they'd have Jane and Daria. You knew shit was getting real on the show when Jane and Daria would get real with each other and insult each other, or well, not insult, but tell each other what they were really feeling. Like those were the major season finale type moments, which this episode is as well.
Yeah.
This just wasn't when they could commit even more to that in later seasons when it got more linear and do it even more well.
Mm-hmm. So we get a nice little wrap up of the main theme of the episode when Daria is called on by Mr. O'Neill to interpret the passage, "'Tis better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all."
Well, he's acknowledging that if something makes you feel good, like being in love, there must be a corresponding painful side, like losing at love. That's just a fact of life.
Sad, but true.
And what's intriguing about it is that no one calls Tennyson a big unhappiness freak just because he understands that.
Is he a big unhappiness freak?
No, he's a realist. He says emotional involvement can bring pleasure and extraordinary pain. Then he declares that it's still better than never feeling anything at all.
That is excellent, Daria.
Of course, this was written before the advent of community property laws.
It's great that the show is not cynical enough to shoot Daria down. It's great that the teacher is way into her and her being insightful, because the previous person he calls on is Brittany.
Yes.
And it's what was he talking about? Love?
Yeah.
That was
Which
a great
is
line.
true.
Yeah.
But yeah, to what Sam was saying earlier too, I think Daria is clearly talking about herself. She's not talking about Tennyson. She's saying that she is a realist, that she's not a super sad person all the time, but she's just more of a realist. And I think, though, I like the episodes where Daria realizes she doesn't know as much as she thinks she does. And though she still feels a certain level of superiority too, of I know this stuff, and I even know more than Tennyson because he said these things before divorce laws were that's what community property laws are. It's like in California in divorce, where it is 50-50 that all property owned in a couple is 50-50 split between them, and when the marriage breaks up, that person takes half of it. And I like to imagine Tennyson as a men's rights divorce lawyer court hater.
He'd have his own Reddit subgroup. Daria is quite worldly for a 15-year-old. I'll say that much. She's read a lot of books.
She references lots of them throughout the series.
As someone who would eventually go on to study literature, Daria was like sort of an inspiration. As someone who patterned my life after Daria's.
Yeah, it made me feel like a real cool person when I was reading Franz Kafka at lunch instead of talking to people or making friends.
The existentialism was strong with you as well.
Oh, very much so. I got super into existentialism there. Kafka, I mean, Hess is cool and Sartre is smartra, but Kafka was my favorite, mostly because he had the most issues with his father, which I really connected with because he was. There's like at least five different Kafka short stories where a father yells at him, and that's the worst.
And all of his books were published after he died against his will.
Yep. Yeah.
So, fun story. Really fun story.
One of my favorite books of that Daria is reading, I put that in quotation marks, or had read or referenced, was How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Which is ironic.
That is a great real book that no one should read.
No, it's not. Yes.
I think it's just business advice, actually. But
it is.
So the finale to this episode is Daria finally making some money out of this whole advice thing. Sandy from the fashion club comes up to her, is explaining she feels really bad about letting her cat get into her foundation. The cat's very sick. The cat didn't die, thankfully. But Daria handles it the best way Daria can.
I'm afraid that inflation has forced me to institute a small fee for my services.
Huh?
$10 in advance.
Oh. Sure.
What is the animal's name?
Fluffy.
I see. Fluffy.
So, what's your advice?
Find some other way to feel. Then you won't feel sad. Good luck.
That's what I get for $10? Are you kidding?
See? It's working already.
Thanks.
You just made $10 off that poor girl's suffering.
Yeah, that was wrong.
Really? Next time.
20.
Bam, and they're back together, and everything is as it should be. Daria's owning some normies once again.
I like that pause on Sandy where she's like, wait, am I being tricked or did this work?
I love the way Sandy talks. Actually,
Me too. Sandy's voice is great.
Not long ago on Twitter, when our president Donald Trump was having some real catty back and forth with Kim Jong-un, is that his name?
Yes.
People were taking his quotes and putting them over pictures of the fashion club on telephones, and you could read all of Trump's quotes as Quinn and Sandy and Stacy and Tiffany. It was great.
That's so good
because he could be a real catty. He's just a catty rich boy.
Yeah, no.
He's mad about fancy parties.
Felix Biederman on Chapo Trap House has the great point that he's just like that. You project onto the president, his fans project on him this extreme masculinity when he's really just a guy complaining about parties all the time.
Yeah.
He's just a fancy socialite.
And
he's not a tough guy.
His greatest revenge is you don't get to eat a special cake at his
my
resort.
Cake.
Yeah.
And I think though at first I thought they were going to say that her cat died, but I think they realized well, no, it's too far. If she's exploiting a dead cat, if a sick cat, she can collect $10 off.
We'll show that Daria didn't learn anything about empathy.
And I want to say the end song in the original cut is Pearl by Love and Rockets.
That's great, yeah.
And it was actually Susie Lewis, the co-creator, in a Paste magazine interview in 2016, which was all about the deleted music. Because if you watched on Hulu, it's just library music. But in the 2016 interview where they talk about how the music all got deleted, Susie Lewis said that was her favorite song, putting Pearl and Love and Rockets at the end of that episode.
And actually, Susie Lewis, I didn't mention this earlier, co-creator Susie Lewis, she was on Beavis and Butthead. She actually did the video segments, the music video segments. She selected the songs. She supervised the writing and voiceover for that. So that was her role on the show.
It's quite a playlist. She should be a DJ or something.
The music selections are great. But we're going to wrap up. I want to know what everyone thinks in summation of this episode. Let's start with Sam, our special guest. I really want to know, after sitting down with this show 20-some years later, what do you think about this episode in the grand scheme of things?
I think it's still super relevant. My favorite part about Daria is it holds up so well. I was worried that going back, the first time I saw it was 20 years ago. The second time I saw it was like 10 to 15 years ago. And now it's like my third time revisiting the show, and it's still super relevant. I love it. I'm super biased. I love it.
I do like that this is a comedy, but it's not like a gut buster. Like the most you'll get out of it, in my estimation, is just kind of a smile. But it's still like very enthralling, and like just listening to the arguments and conversations. It's just so much fun to watch, especially the interplay between Daria and Jane. Like their fight is just so realistic and so well observed, and they both are. No one comes out as like the most moral creature. They both have their flaws.
I think it was a really great transition for the show, and it set up the series to be what it was. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely very important.
For me, revisiting it was fun, but also kind of embarrassing. Not embarrassing, but it brought me back mentally to high school almost too much. And it's like, ooh, I hadn't thought about these feelings in a long time. I had preferred to leave these forgotten. And so sometimes when I would watch the episode and see Daria make mistakes, or in other episodes I watched too, Daria making mistakes or learning something, I'm like, oh, I remember learning that lesson too, or this. I also sucked like Daria sucked here. I wish I had learned my lessons better.
For me, it's validating. Although I get the internal cringe sometimes, going, oh, I can't believe I felt that or thought that, or, you see these experiences play out before your eyes. You relive a lot of things. But, yeah, for me, it's validating. I was very tormented by the popular crowd in high school, and I had terrible low self-esteem. And there's a line that I have written down here that I love. It's from the very first episode of Steamers, and it's when
the line,
Jane says, "I like my low self-esteem. It makes me feel special."
That is a great Jane line. I'm sort of with Henry in that I can look back and I can see myself in Daria. And I can see when I was like a prideful know-it-all who was concerned with like the logical explanation of everything and sort of shitting on everyone's fun. And over the course of the show, she grows, and I feel like I can reflect upon my own growth as a person. And I hopefully have grown up since I was 15. But I feel like I did have to learn to be empathetic. I did have to learn again. It's not always important to be right. Sometimes it's more important to be empathetic and loving than it is to be the person, the Debbie Downer, if you will, of the group. Although Debbie Downers are important. I'm not saying they're not.
And hilarious.
Yes, but if you want to be happy, sometimes you have to be less logical and less rigid like Daria is. And Daria eventually learns to become more human and open up to more people and even members of her family throughout the series. And I think the fact that they did do these things with Daria instead of just making her a rigid, normie takedown character, I really appreciate that. They could have just made her this escapist character that all the nerds could love to see her getting this great revenge on all these people that they hate. But they really looked at Daria from a different angle after this episode, and I'm very appreciative that they did. So let's wrap up our show. Sam, you're our special guest. Tell us where we can find you, what you do, Twitter stuff, anything you got.
On Twitter, I am at Lighthammer. If you guys don't know me, I am a social media producer at GameSpot, and sometimes I do video content stuff on occasion.
Cool. Any sort of shows we should check out, or
nothing I can announce yet?
Okay.
But
stuff is in the works.
There are some things interesting happening, and I do some live streams. We stream midday. Check us out.
Awesome,
we'll do. So as for us, this entire network is supported by the Talking Simpsons Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, you can find out how to help the show. If you support at the $5 level, you get a lot of great stuff. Mainly, you get this podcast a week ahead of time and ad-free, along with Talking Simpsons a week ahead of time and ad-free. And there is so much stuff going on the Patreon at the $5 level. So many exclusive series and bonus podcasts. If you sign up now, you'll probably have 100-plus podcasts to listen to that you've never heard before. Henry, what are two of our most recent special Patreon-only exclusives that we have to offer people?
Well, there was our season wrap-up where we went through the entire 7th season events that happened in The Simpsons, as well as our interview with Mike Reese. I really enjoyed that one where we talked to him about his 30 years working on The Simpsons right from season 1 in his new book. That was really cool. So both of those things, and hey, I may as well plug one more thing. If you want to watch Daria on Hulu,
I do.
You could get a free month of Hulu by signing up subscribe at tiny.cc/TS Hulu, TS Talking Simpsons, TS Hulu, 30-day free trial, and you'll be able to watch Daria and tons of other things on there that we've covered on this podcast.
Yes, be sure to check out patreon.com/Talking Simpsons for more. As for me, I have been your host, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. I have another podcast, and that podcast is Retronauts. It's a classic gaming podcast. It's been going on since 2006. I recommend you look it up online or in your podcatcher or MP3 player, whatever you have, your Rio Nitrous, if you will, and look us up, find a topic that interests you, and then maybe subscribe to the show. I think you'll like it a lot, and that's retronauts.com, or again, Retronauts in your podcast machine of choice. Henry, where can we find you?
HENEREYG is my Twitter handle, and you can find out information on the shows that we do and all of our podcast news when we do live shows and have new interviews going up. You will learn about it there first. So follow me there, HENEREYG.
Thank you so much for joining us, folks. We'll see you next week for the Tick episode, The Tick versus the Tick. We'll see you then.
It is better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all. Just what is Lord Tennyson talking about here? Brittany?
Love?
Anyone else?
O'Reilly! Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free and provides a report with solutions based on over 650 million vehicle scans verified by ASE certified master technicians. And if you need help, we can recommend a shop for you. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.